All right, let's dive right into this explainer and learn exactly how to visually elevate your digital presence. Whether you're a student, a job seeker, a freelancer, or a seasoned developer, you know that having a personal portfolio website is an absolute necessity these days. But here's the thing, a portfolio isn't just about dumping lines of text on a page, it's about presenting yourself to the world. Did you know that recruiters often decide whether to even keep reading a portfolio in the first few seconds purely based on visual first impressions? To make sure that impression actually counts, you really need to understand how to handle HTML images. Think about it for a second. What happens when you land on a profile with no picture? It feels incredibly flat and lifeless, right? Your portfolio absolutely needs an image to build trust with recruiters, clients, and everyday visitors. Have you ever clicked on a personal website with no photo and instantly wondered if the person is just an inactive user or worse, a bot? Instead of sending out a standard sterile resume, adding a clear professional image of yourself makes a massive difference. Recruiters literally trust you more when they can see a real, polished human behind all that code. So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the power of images. Then we'll break down the anatomy of the image tag, compare absolute and relative paths, and finally, actually build out your portfolio profile picture. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the power of images and why visuals actually matter. Sure, images make things look great, which is an awesome perk, but it's way deeper than that. They provide instant visual context to the user. I mean, research actually shows that the human brain processes images up to 60,000 times faster than text. That makes them the absolute most critical split-second element on your page for grabbing someone's attention. But beyond just aesthetics, adding images correctly is deeply tied to your site's accessibility, its loading speed, and the overall user experience. How you implement them can literally be the defining factor between a professional to your site and an amateur one. Moving right along to Section 2, anatomy of the image tag under the hood. Now, this is where it gets kind of cool. Unlike paragraph or heading tags, the image tag, which is written as just IMG inside angle brackets, is what we call a void element. If you've been writing standard HTML, you're used to the whole routine: opening tag, some text, and a closing tag with a slash. But a void element, it doesn't have any inner text content, so it doesn't even need a closing tag at all. You literally just open it, give it a few specific instructions on what to display, and boom, you're done. It's super clean, efficient, and totally self-contained. Because of that, the image tag relies completely on what we call attributes to actually function. Think of it like this. The image tag itself is just an empty picture frame, and the SRC attribute, which stands for source, is the canvas you slide into it. The SRC tells the browser exactly where to go fetch that image file. Without a source, you're just staring at a blank space on the screen. But there's another piece of the puzzle that's equally as important, and that's the alt attribute. So alt stands for alternative text, and it is absolutely vital that you include it. It's not just a fallback for when an image link happens to break, though it does save the day and display that text if an image fails to load. Its primary superpower is acting as a massive accessibility tool. Screen readers used by visually impaired users rely heavily on this exact text to describe what the image is. You really want to keep it meaningful. If it's a picture of you, write your name and a brief description, like Jane Doe smiling professionally. Please, whatever you do, don't leave it as img_4928.jpg. That helps absolutely no one and is frankly pretty embarrassing if it shows up on screen. Oh, and a quick pro tip, if an image is purely decorative and adds no real context, you can just leave the alt attribute totally empty with 2 quotes, so screen readers know to just skip right past it. Now, beyond the basics of source and alt text, there are a few absolute game-changing attributes you should be using. Specifying the width and height of your image right in the HTML prepares the browser for the image's exact size before it even downloads. You know that super annoying thing on your phone where you go to tap a link, an image suddenly loads, the whole page jumps down, and you accidentally click an ad instead? Yeah, that incredibly frustrating experience is called a cumulative layout shift, and defining your dimensions stops it dead in its tracks. Next up, we have the loading attribute. By default, browsers want to load every image right away. But if you have an image way down at the bottom of your portfolio, you can set loading equals lazy. The browser will actually wait to load it until the user scrolls near it, which massively speeds up your initial page load time. And finally, the title attribute. That just gives you a neat little tooltip that pops up when someone hovers their mouse over the image. All right, let's jump into Section 3, absolute versus relative paths, finding the source. Okay, this specific distinction trips up so many beginners, so let's clear it up. Think of an absolute path like mailing a letter with a full global address. You need the country, the state, the zip code, the whole shebang. On the web, that's a full URL starting with HTTPS, pointing to an image hosted on an entirely different server somewhere else on the internet. A relative path, on the other hand, is basically just leaning out your window and telling the browser, hey, this image is in the folder right next door. It's an address that is strictly relative to exactly where your current HTML file is sitting. And for your own portfolio website, keeping your files organized locally with relative paths is the absolute industry standard. You want to create a dedicated folder inside your project directory, usually just named images, and toss your JPEG, PNG, or SVG files right in there. Then your source attribute simply looks like images/profilepicture.jpg. Why does this matter? Well, when you eventually upload your entire project folder to a free host like GitHub Pages, all your links stay perfectly intact because the files are all traveling together. Trust me, there is literally nothing worse than sending a recruiter your shiny new portfolio only to realize all your images are broken because the code is still pointing to a random file on your personal laptop's hard drive. Which brings us nicely to Section 4, Building Your Profile, Portfolio Image. Let's put this all into practice. A lot of times when you're designing a website, you might not have that perfect, professionally edited headshot ready to go just yet. But hey, we don't want that holding up your coding progress. By following these simple steps, you can easily use a placeholder. Step 1, drop that self-closing IMG tag exactly where you want your face to go. Step 2, for the SRC attribute, we're going to temporarily use an absolute path. There are awesome free services out there like placeholder.com where you just plug in a link like placeholder.com/300 and it generates a temporary 300 by 300 pixel image for you right on the fly. And step 3, go ahead and write that descriptive alt text right now so you don't forget it later. Then, when your real photo is finally ready, you simply swap out that absolute placeholder URL with a relative path to your actual local image file. Now that you've got the coding chops to seamlessly integrate optimized, accessible images, the creative choice is entirely in your hands. Take a hard look at your current digital footprint. If a recruiter or a potential client stumbles across your portfolio tomorrow, what face is going to greet them? Will it be a blank, empty void or a perfectly optimized professional representation of exactly who you are? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Now get out there and give your code a face.